Hi, I'm Kristen and this is Scrap Fabric Love, and today I'm going to show you 8 fun and free scrap quilts that you can try. They all use different size scraps and different methods of piecing and going together. So I hope no matter who you are and what kind of quilter you are, you're going to find a fun idea to use up your scraps. If you haven't seen the channel before, my style of scrap quilts may be a tiny bit more modern than some other types of scrap quilts you might have seen in the past. I don't tend to do the big mishmash of all sorts of colors. I tend to do color coordinated, often use some negative space so that you can really see those scraps and highlight them. That's just my personal style. But I'm also a believer that everyone has to make quilts their own way. So if you like to put all sorts of different colored scraps together, you can absolutely adapt these patterns to do that. And some people are super talented at making that all work. So go for it if that's your jam. So I've had a fair number of new subscribers recently to the channel. Hi, thank you. So I wanted to go back and show some scrap quilts that have been big favorites on the channel that you might not have seen, as well as some that maybe were not favorites because they were from ages ago when no one was watching the channel. And maybe one of those will chime with you too. All of the links to the video and the written tutorials that go with these quilts are in the description box of this video, but I'm also going to put all those links together into one post on my blog so that if you just want to see the list of what I'm talking about and click on the one you want, that might be the easiest thing to do. But so I'll put that in the video description box. But let's get going and I'll show you the quilts. Okay, so one of the most popular quilts on my blog and on the YouTube channel is this one, my Denim and Scraps quilt. I'll show you a bigger picture as well, but let me just hold up a bit of it. So you don't have to make this with denim, but I do love a denim quilt on this channel. I've got plenty more if you're into that kind of thing. Anyway, this one I did quilt as you go. So the denim blocks are 6.5 inches, and these little color pops are leftover strips of binding. So, you know, you get to the end of the binding, you just have about that much left, that kind of thing. So they're kind of folded over. There's a whole tutorial on the block, and then there's another tutorial on how I put this together using Quilt As You Go. So I used a false back method for this particular one. There you go, you can see the back. This is an old duvet cover. But at the time I made this, I hadn't discovered what is now my favorite Quilt As You Go method, which is the join and flip joining method. So I do have another video about that, and you can absolutely adapt this quilt to use with that Quilt As You Go method as well. So anyway, so this one comes together super easy. You can obviously personalize the colors with the pops here, and you could do it with cotton. It doesn't have to be denim. But anyway, I love this quilt. This one gets snuggled in our living room. It's nice and warm and cozy because it does have batting and it is denim. So yeah, this is one of my favorites and a lot of viewers' favorites as well. Right, another one that I love, I've done 2 of so far. One I don't have because it was a gift, it's gone away. And the other one I have is this one, which I did a quilt along of. So again, I'll show you a bigger picture on the screen, but this is, I don't even know which way, this way I guess. So this one is what I call my modern improv scrap quilt. So there's no measuring, there's no set sizes. So I would say this is for sort of your palm size scraps here. And then background fabric. So this one, I had a whole bunch of yardage. This sort of browny gray was the background. But in the first version that I made for my friend Angie for her wedding, the background fabric was just all different kind of low volume prints, some whites and things with like very subtle prints on them. So you could just use up a whole bunch of stuff that is kind of cluttering up your shelves. You just need it all to be the same color, not the same fabric. Okay, so that's why I like this. Some folk find it difficult to get their head around this. So I did a whole quilt along series where I talked through all the choices I was making, because this isn't a set block. It is something where you kind of play and it grows as you go. But I've explained the whole process in those videos. So you can check that out if this kind of takes your fancy. Next up, for super tiny scraps, so we're talking crumbs now, I have my low volume crumb quilt. This doesn't have to be low volume, but you know what I was talking about, the mix of background fabrics that you could use for that improv quilt. This one as well is just all, so it kind of is a mix. I'll do a big picture. Is so prints with maybe some black or some blue. I've got some beiges, creams in this. So this was all, I've got a video about this and a tutorial, but it was all basically starting with those teeny tiny crumbs and building up. I didn't cut like set block sizes, but you could, and that might make it easier to process for you. But I just sort of did chunks of my crumbs. And then as they got bigger, I would add like a longer strip to try to just even them out and get them to fit with whatever, big chunk I had over here. And you'll see how it comes together in the video. It's easier than it sounds, but it does take a while. Crumb piecing takes a while. So it's one of those things where if you like to do a leader and ender, I don't so much. I like to just sit and have a crumb quilting session, but some people would find this comes together a little faster if you just do join a couple of crumbs together each time you're sewing. And then before you know it, you've got these big chunks and you can start playing and joining them together. I do love a good coordinated crumb quilt or crumb block. I've got a number of videos on my channel about one color crumb quilting. And if you ever see any of my quilt alongs or anything really where I'm using crumbs, I often will group the colors together so that you've got like kind of all the blues playing and all the pinks or something like that. That's a style choice. You could obviously go totally random and you'd still have a super cool scrap quilt. But anyway, so there's that one. So next up, I have a slightly smaller project. It's for jelly roll strips. I don't have it here. It's in the house, but I don't know where it is. It's a stroller quilt that I made for my son. So it was made to be the size to fit over his lap on his stroller, just to keep his legs warm it was when he was like a little bit older, that you don't have them in the muffs all the time, that come with the baby strollers. And this was more for like an umbrella stroller. And so I had little Velcro straps on the side. So this comes together really quickly. For one, it's a great gift for new moms or kids, especially if they're from a family where they don't want to put a quilt in the baby or toddler bed yet. They're not ready for that. That can be a good one. And I used just some leftover strips from like a transport themed jelly roll. I can't remember what the fabric line was, but it was very popular. So I'm sure somebody out there will know. Maybe you can drop it in the comments for anyone who wants to know what that one was. Or I might have said it in the video. Yeah, it was probably in the video. So anyway, I'll link to the video. This one was one that was years ago. So unless you are a diehard fan of the channel, you probably haven't seen this one before. But yeah, it's a nice quick one. Backed it with fleece. And yeah, and we used it and my son loved it. Okay, next I have this one. It is messy because it's been in my front room and the cats love sitting on it. But it looked way better when it was not covered in cat hair because it's black. So it's not the best one for them to choose. So this was, again, another one of my quilt alongs. I've done a few. And there were choices. I do lots of choices in my quilt alongs. So the sizes that worked for this one were 2.5-inch squares, 4.5 by 2.5-inch rectangles, or crumbs. You could also use crumbs and sort of sub out the shapes. I can't remember if there were other sizes in here, but anyway, it's all in the videos and in the tutorials. And if you're interested specifically in the quilt alongs, I know it can be hard to kind of go around and find all the videos, and then if you want to get the downloads that go with it, you have to, although it's all free, you do have to sign up on my email for that. But I have it all in one place inside Scrap Club, which is my Patreon. It's a quilt community that I've started recently. We've got over 100 members just now. Really great group of quilters. We meet once a month on Zoom. We do show and tell. We're about to start a group quilt, which I'm really excited about. And it's just a fun, no judgment, no quilt police zone. Totally beginner friendly, and it's just really lovely and supportive. So if you haven't found your quilting people and you're interested in the quilt alongs, all of the back catalog of quilt alongs and all the downloads for anything that goes with that are in the library inside Scrap Club. So anyway, I'll put the link for that in the description. But this was another fun one. And this is another one where I did that sort of color coordinating of the crumbs thing. So I think most of mine, let me look. So this one, for example, the middle block was a crumb block. And then for these ones, I just used regular cuts. This one in particular, a lot of my quilts you can, but this one, I've got the AccuQuilt die numbers in the tutorial and in the videos. I love my AccuQuilt. And so I usually try and make most of the quilt alongs work for AccuQuilt. So this one is good for that. And if you want to see what other people did with this pattern as well, I've got some photos of other folks' quilts in the videos, and I think I might have a short, I don't know. Anyway, I'll link to all of that below. Okay, another super old one. And this one is great if you're foundation paper piecing curious, but you don't want to do something complicated. Okay, so this was one of my first free patterns. It's called X Marks the Scrap. And if I was making it again, which maybe I should, I would do some things differently, and I'll explain what those are. But it's a super simple FPP block. So this is kind of a combination of FPP and crumb piecing, right? So you start with these strips that are, I did them on adding machine tape. So if you ever paper roll, you know, the rolls of adding machine paper that you put in like a checkout thing. Anyway, you can buy those, or you could use receipts as well, really long receipts from the grocery store. You just have to cut them down to the size that we're using in the blocks here. But anyway, so this, I used all sorts of different crumbs. The thing I would do differently, has anyone guessed, if I was doing this again, would be to color coordinate even more. So you see I did kind of color groupings. I think I would probably make this like all yellow, or actually I don't mind that one. But so the basic idea is you start by adding all your little crumbs in. I did sort of color groups. Some of them are more successful than others. You can see from the big photo. And then these bits. So this is, again, this is covered in, like we use these quilts. So they're covered in cat hair. We've got 2 cats. So the block goes together by piecing these two. So this is one unit that you then becomes part of your FPP block, and then the 2 backgrounds. And so just like with a lot of my quilts, the background is all scraps as well. So it's just a whole bunch of different low volumes and whites, so that you can just use up whatever you've got, even if it's just a little bit, or if it's a long bit, you can kind of spread it around and it can still look kind of scrappy. Right? So there's a free tutorial, and then you do have to sign up for the email to get the printable FPP pattern. It's free. I just want to get you on my newsletter list so I can chat to you and let you know what's going on. So that's kind of the trade-off. For the free block, you have to let me email you and keep you updated with the latest on the channel. So if you think that's a good deal, then you can go check that one out. Okay, another super old one, which I really liked. It probably doesn't use a whole lot of scraps, but it highlights some, is this one. Again, it's been folded. It's called the Raindrops baby quilt. It's a big baby quilt. So it's more like a toddler, large child quilt, a grow with me baby quilt, which is kind of what I like to make. I don't make them small because no one puts the quilts in the cots anymore anyway. So I make big ones that can then grow and go on toddler beds or be carried around the house. Anyway, this one, that didn't happen, mostly because it's white. It's not, so if you're doing this, you might want to do a different background color, if it maybe gray for a child if they're going to drag it around the house. But anyway, my niece is coming to visit, so I pulled this out because it'll be the perfect size for her, and if she likes it, she can take it home and she can fit it in a suitcase. But anyway, so it's just, this is an AccuQuilt die shape as well, but you can also just cut them out. All the instructions are on the blog and in the video. It's a super simple sort of beginner applique if you like negative space, modern, all that kind of stuff. And you could make the background scrappier. This is just one piece of fabric, or I might have, is there a seam? I might have had to piece something, I'm not sure. I can't remember. But you could piece the background from different whites and make it scrappier that way if you just want to use up some bits and pieces. But obviously it doesn't use a whole heck of a lot of the colored scraps, but I thought I'd include it anyway, because if you're just looking for a quick finish that kind of has a modern visual impact, I really like it. Obviously it's wrinkled, I understand, but it did look better when it was first made, and it will look better when the wrinkles have dropped out and all that. If you're looking for something that uses slightly more scraps, but still highlights some pretty bits of fabric in the way this does, I also have a video for my framed scraps tutorial. I didn't include that here because I've given it away. I don't have it. But if you like a modern look and you want to just highlight some lovely scraps that you really like, that framed scraps quilt might be a good one. So I said 8 at the top of the video, but I'd forgotten about this one. So I guess it's really 9, but I'm not going to film the introduction again. So it's still going to say 8 at the beginning. Anyway, so the framed scraps quilt is another good one for that. And lastly, if you're looking for something a bit more traditional looking, but still super simple and easy to follow, I did a Stashbuster quilt last year. It used charm pack squares, jelly roll strips, and some slightly larger scraps. And it came together very, very quickly. So that can be a good one for using more of that, like a lot of leftover stuff. I didn't end up quilting or finishing that one. That one got given away to a subscriber because it just didn't inspire me in the end. You can probably see the style that I more gravitate to from the rest of these quilts, and maybe that one was just a bit outside my wheelhouse, but it's free and it's on the blog, so if that one tickles you, then go ahead and check it out. Sometimes going all in for one big scrap quilt can be too much, so if you just fancy trying some different blocks and using up little bits of scraps at a time, I have a whole playlist of scrappy quilt blocks. Some of them are in these quilts and some of them are totally not. I've got loads of them. So do go and check all those out and see if any of those would be perfect for the leftover scraps that you've got in your sewing room. So I hope you found something to inspire you to sew in that lot. If you like these kind of quilts and these kind of videos and you haven't already subscribed, I hope you'll consider it. I make scrap quilts, as you've seen. I don't follow a lot of quilting rules, and I just try and make it a relaxed, fun space for everyone to come and hopefully get a bit of inspiration. So thanks so much for watching today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.